Okay, everybody. Good morning. I'm Councillor Kevin Brown, the Chairman of the committee, and would like you to welcome you all to this place committee that is being broadcast live and recorded for publication. Can I, before we start, ask everybody to put the phones off or on silent? If you do have to take a call, could I ask you to make apologies and take it outside the room? If it coincides with a vote, I will pause the meeting for a reasonable time so you can rejoin the meeting and take part in the vote. Okay, that being said, we'll move on to item 1 on the agenda, minutes of the last meeting. Can I ask the committee to approve the minutes of the last meeting by a show of hands? That's correct, yes. It's agreed. Dom, do we have any apologies for absence?
Councillor Gamble is substituting for Councillor Brill, who sends apologies under the category Other Reasons. Councillor Barlow is substituting for Councillor Introna, who sends apologies under the category Other Reasons. We also have apologies from Councillor Simon Wright under the category Other Reasons, and Councillor Jim Vernon is running slightly late today. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Item 3 on the agenda, declarations of interest. If any councillor or officer has an interest in any matter on the agenda, you should declare it now. Please raise your hand now if you have an interest to declare. If you have an interest to declare, you should state what type of interest it is and give brief details. Take that as no. Thank you very much. Just before moving on to item agenda number 4, I'd just like to remind members that scrutiny is a vital, non-political function of local government, which focuses on the issues that matter most to residents and communities. Scrutiny plays a key role in holding decision makers to account, helping to improve public services and shape more effective policies. Thank you. So we'll move on to item 4 on the agenda, section 19 reports, January flooding event. And I invite Councillor Bingham, Cabinet Member for Transport and Environment, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll try and get it right. I'm reliant on scripts this morning. It's the first scrutiny committee that I've sat before. So nice to see everybody. Yeah, in England, it's estimated that 1 in 6 homes are at risk of flooding. Flooding is one of the most devastating natural hazards with far-reaching consequences for communities. It disrupts lives, damages homes and businesses, and impacts our county's infrastructure, and it can lead to long-term economic and emotional hardship. Between the 4th to the 8th of January this year, Nottinghamshire experienced freezing temperatures and snowfall across most of the county, followed by sustained rainfall on an already wet catchment. Excuse me. As the lead local flood authority, Notts County Council has a statutory duty to investigate significant flood events within its area. For our county, the trigger for these investigations is when 5 or more properties in a catchment are internally flooded. Sadly, Costock, Eastleigh, Newark-on-Trent, Zoch, I think I got the pronunciation right, East Markham, which was Storm Babet, all breached this threshold. These Section 19 flood investigation reports have been prepared in accordance with the duties set out under Section 19 of the Flood and Water Management Act 2010. The purpose of these reports is to investigate the flooding incident that occurred in January, assess its impacts, and to identify the responsible risk management authorities. This report aims to establish the causes and impacts of the flooding, determine whether the relevant RMAs have exercised their flood risk management functions, provide transparency and accountability to affected communities, and recommend actions to reduce future flood risk and improve resilience. This report is not intended to apportion blame or liability, nor does it provide a comprehensive technical analysis of the event. It serves as a factual account and a basis for collaborative action among stakeholders. I am pleased to say in all cases, respondents were found to have undertaken their respective duties in accordance with the expectations. In conclusion, my sincere thanks go to the volunteer community flood signage wardens who braved to make their communities more resilient, and to the officers of Nottinghamshire County Council via East Midlands and the agencies who responded to this call to action. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bingham. Can I ask the officers present if they have anything further to add?
So, Sue Jakes, members, if I might introduce Sue to the meeting, is the manager of our flood risk and flood risk management team. So, Sue, I don't know if there's anything else from your perspective to add.
No, well, it's very comprehensive. I think just to say, as Nottinghamshire County Council, we're the local authority for surface water flooding. So, river flooding is looked after by the EA, foul flooding by water. So if it's coming out of the river or it's coming out of the reservoir, they're the main lead. So when we going forward with action for some of these communities, there are other agencies that lead on the development of the schemes. So where we are the lead authority for the schemes, we will take the lead in the development of the schemes. And for a number of those communities who were sadly really badly affected by flooding, as the authority, we have taken a number of actions already to help those affected by Storm Babet and Henk and the January flooding. So we're working with all the communities that have Section 19 reports before you today, and we've started taking some remedial action and starting to implement schemes with them. Also to say, since we've had the very bad flooding with Storm Babet and Henk, the volunteers that are part of the community flood signage schemes have grown tremendously. We have the largest flood signage scheme in the country. It's a national award-winning scheme. We have 650 volunteers across 45 communities, which is exceptional and testament to the residents of Nottinghamshire for coming forward and doing something that is really difficult to help their communities more resilient.
Thank you. Anything else then? Before I open it to the floor, I'd just like to remind members that the questions and discussions should be focused around the contents of the Section 19 report and how the relevant risk management authorities exercise their responsibilities to these flooding events. Flooding is a very complex issue, and the impact a wide range of factors and variables. On that note, I'll open it up for debate. Oh, sorry, yes. And I move the recommendations that are outlined in the report and seek a seconder.
Seconded.
Okay, so now I'll open it up to debate. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman, very much indeed. Obviously, I find myself in, I was going to say uncharted waters there. I didn't mean to say that. A strange experience for me, should we say, Chairman. Obviously, having been the cabinet portfolio for in the previous term, then obviously I'm very familiar with all this, and also I'm running a sweepstake on the first person to say, as you well know, Councillor Clark, from the last 4 years. So I suppose really, well, I've got a few questions, but they really relate to, if you like, how we are continuing the work that was in place beforehand. But first of all, I do want to very much echo Councillor Bingham's comments, and certainly the Conservative group wants to extend our thanks to the flood team, very excellently led by Sue Jakes and the emergency planning officers, and of course the volunteers that were mentioned, and the flood warden scheme volunteers, and all the other, it's not just the flood warden scheme volunteers, but lots of other volunteers who all sort of pitch in and help in the community. And as we've said many times before, they're absolutely vital, because obviously the council workforce can't be everywhere all of the time, and so volunteers are a vital part of that. So we absolutely thank everybody for that. I've just got a few questions, Chairman. Do you want to ask them one at a time, or?
I think that might be preferable, yeah.
Right, okay. So I suppose really, and this also have Councillor Bingham's words in mind when he said improve resilience. So this is what it's all about, really. I'm just asking, first of all, are we continuing? We upped the game in gully cleansing, etc., in the last term. I just want looking for assurance that we'll still maintain that impetus, because obviously gully cleansing is very much part of prevention rather than trying to deal with it after the event. So I suppose that's my first question, Chairman.
Well,
Would you like to answer that?
I can introduce, yeah. Yes, I agree with your sentiment there. I'll hand over to Derek Higton, the officer, to answer that. But yeah, very much agree with the sentiment. We've got limited resources, and of course, in this long dry summer, we've been concentrating on highways resurfacing, but we need to be focused on gully cleaning as well. So I'll let Derek take over.
Thanks, Councillor Clark, for that question. Avoiding taking the office here.
You're not going to take this challenge,
I'll try not to. But it's absolutely the case that in the previous administration, there was very welcome additional investment in drainage, highways drainage schemes, to kind of address a kind of funding shortfall that had been in existence for a number of years previously, and which was having consequences for both our flood response and flood risk management arrangements, but also for the condition of the highway itself. So in the previous administration, we invested in both ongoing maintenance activity and clearing activity, as well as preparing the ground for some longer term highways drainage infrastructure improvement works. And I'm happy to confirm that in both of those cases, that activity, that investment continues. The current highways capital programme does include some highways drainage schemes activity, which is helping us get into a much more resilient place around the risk of surface water flooding that's generated from the highway.
Thank you, Chairman. I suppose what I should have just put a supplementary onto that as well. On page 15, paragraph 37, it talks about the financial implications. I just coupled with that, are there any, or what particular flood prevention measures are being prioritised within the forthcoming capital programme? Are there any changes, or is that continuing as previously?
So the current capital programme for 25-26 is the same. It's been delivered to the letter in terms of the one that was approved by the previous administration in March of 2025. So the 205 schemes that are included in that overall capital programme have largely been delivered. But those that are still outstanding will be delivered as scheduled. And we're also working with colleagues at the Combined Authority, which is now the kind of main source of funding for highways maintenance and improvement schemes, to explore if we can generate additional investment in particular areas of highway maintenance. Councillor Bingham's mentioned road surface improvements, but we're also exploring how we might develop a longer term programme of drainage improvements as well.
Just in terms of and Sue mentioned the January event and Storm Babet, and she talked about the lessons that have been learnt, etc. I just wondered whether she could give any examples of lessons that have been learnt or actions taken as a result of learning about that. Are there any other ways in which we can support the communities in developing flood action groups, etc.?
Would you like to answer that one, Sue?
Yes, I would. So Babet and Henk, we saw around 2,000 properties with internal. So we learned a lot from that. We learned how resilient folks are, how responsive the local authority is, and what a good job we did with actually no loss of life across the county during those significant events, for sure. Going forward, what we have done is we've held drop-in sessions with the communities that were affected to get the local knowledge, because that is invaluable. They see it on the ground, and as we said, we can't be everywhere across the county. And at some points with those major flooding events, travelling on the network is not practical or possible, and dangerous because it's impacted. So that first-hand knowledge has been brilliant. So we've worked with lots of communities who have volunteered to put in place action plans, policies and safeguarding to say what those communities need to do when there's a flood event, and for those lead volunteers to take action to do that. We've undertaken land drainage survey works in lots of communities, so that's having a specialist team out on site investigating the drainage and how that drainage works, and if we have problems with that drainage and how that infrastructure works. We now host and chair as Nottinghamshire County Council a regional flood risk strategic board, because as you know, in Nottinghamshire we sometimes get water from Derbyshire or Leicestershire depending on which way it's coming, to work with those agencies to be more resilient and to share information more regularly. We obviously have a TCG when it's a significant event, but we're doing that more at a local officer level. We have an action plan and strategy that lays out how are we going to work with these communities, where we're going to deliver individual property flood resilience, maybe for those areas where a hard engineering scheme wouldn't be possible or wouldn't be cost beneficial, but to do some simple property flood resilience measures, and that might be putting on flood doors, it might be waterproofing brickwork, it might be putting in barriers, it might be digging a ditch in front of the property or putting in a retaining wall. Some of those real proactive measures give those folks peace of mind when they're away from your home, because I can't imagine anything more difficult than on a day like today when you think, is it really going to rain or isn't it? You know, what do we need to do and are we going to be safe? So there are lots of things that are happening on the ground, and the other big investment that we've made through our capital programme in recent times is natural flood management. So in communities like Woodborough, we were in yesterday, and Oxton, where they had significant internal flooding, we worked with the local farmers there and landowners to put in bunds and swales and leaky dams where we're getting significant runoff from fields, which then goes onto the highway, which then goes into people's homes. We've done really well with attracting external investment from DEFRA and other agencies. We had 194 million brought in the last 3 years from external agencies to support those schemes. So we're opening up our toolbox, if you like. We're looking at lots and lots of alternatives, from natural flood management to hard engineering schemes that you'll see. You know, we've got some significant schemes in Loudon and Mansfield and Southwark, but often smaller schemes for local individual residents are effective.
Excellent.
I'll just ask one more if I may, Chairman,
Yes,
and then I'll give you a rest. That's all right. I meant to actually couple this in with asking about gully cleansing. Also looking for assurance. We started to become more robust with riparian responsibilities, and an obvious example would be is riparian farmers clearing ditches, etc. And that's, I think it's a dual responsibility, because that involves VIA as well. So again, just asking for assurance that that emphasis or that robustness with riparian owners will continue, because often it's the ditches that fill up with rubbish, etc., that then flood the roads. And I'm sure the answer is yes from earlier comments, but just an assurance that the community flood warden schemes will be continuing and ever progressing and increasing.
On the latter point, we've not changed anything. On the first point, and having had some meetings on the Bassett Law Flood Partnership and other things like that, it's no less devastating if a property gets flooded by a smaller river or a big one like the Trent, and it's a very serious matter. But we're keen to promote interagency cooperation, collaboration, and responses, and I'll let Sue pick up on the rest of that, I think, because she has the detail.
And Sue, you might want to just confirm for members of the committee, new members of the committee, what a riparian owner is as well.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, Derek. I was gonna ask that anyway for myself. I haven't got my phone as a
Oh, you're only the chairman. You're not supposed to know.
Well, absolutely. For some, I hope this isn't a shock to you if you suddenly discover you are a riparian owner.
It is to some.
In our world, that happens quite a lot. So we have 2 senior officers in the team that look after our land drainage responsibilities. And they are the folks who go out. So you will be a riparian owner if you have a water course that runs along the boundary of your property, and to the middle of that water course will be your responsibility to keep it clear and flowing. So not to put your grass clippings in it or any other garden furniture or all sorts of things that we see that are located in these water courses. It's your responsibility to keep that clear.
So can I just ask how we enforce this?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways that we do it. So we have inspectors that go out and inspect, and various Midlands have inspectors and flood risk have inspectors. So often we might get a call or we might be inspecting. We have a duty as a lead local flood authority to inspect all our assets, our flood risk assets. So that's culverts and water courses, and we've got about 1,500 of those to inspect, and they get an annual inspection. So we might pick it up that way. We might get it from a neighbour, or what might happen is there's a flood event and we see it first hand. So our approach is we'll go and talk to those folks first, just to make sure that they're aware that they're a riparian owner, and then we'll give them a 14-day notice period to say, can you do something about this? Do you need some help? We can put you in touch with people that can help you and do this for you. And then we walk a road with them if that's not successful, to the point where eventually it will become an enforcement issue, and we would serve notice for them to do that, and we would undertake the works.
So we do actually make them accountable.
We undertake the works and we send them a bill.
Just for your information, Sharon, via managers to write to people like farmers, etc. And because I've seen evidence of where they've been written to and said, right, you've got to clear that ditch out, or else we'll do it and charge you. And they go out and clear the ditches, thankfully, now.
Yeah, and you need to look at each case on an individual basis. There might be some situations where people might really struggle to help those folks. But it is really, really important to keep those riparian water courses in good order, because it does make a significant.
On that, can I just ask you about, it's not just us, there's like the local residents or local groups help us with it. Are they funded? Do we help fund them with?
We help with the signage schemes and those orders. We provide storage units for them, all their PPE, all their equipment, everything that they need.
We train them?
And we train them up, and we give them a policy, and we retrain them every few years. There are lots of communities who operate things called green gyms, so no need to go and pay your gym membership. They operate clearing water courses. We have health and safety concerns sometimes with that activity, and we'll work with communities to make sure that they're doing it in a safe way, because the last thing that you want to be doing is getting into a water course, because it's really dangerous. We do help with that.
Any more questions?
Yeah. People who are affected by flooding, mainly this would be residents. Are they
discouraged from taking their own flood prevention action? If they know that where the water comes in, are they actually discouraged from doing anything about it or encouraged to do it?
No, we'd always encourage communities to be as resilient as they can. The one thing to be mindful of is that you don't take any measures that might affect another property.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
if you divert water, it tends to go.
It moves along. It goes
down to someone else who didn't want it.
Yeah, there are some legal implications if you are found to be proactively causing adjacent properties to flood. What we will do is help people as much as we can. So.
And can they contact you for advice on that? Thank you.
Just on that point, it's worth saying that we have on the council's website, so quite an extensive bit of content in the section around flood risk management, preparation for householders, and kind of prevention for householders as well. And that's got all of our Sue and the team's contact information on as well. So the website is a really good point of accessing information for residents and for members too.
The reason I ask is in 2019, I live in Arnold, there's 24 homes, 24 businesses, and it all came down in their back gardens. Well, they know what's going to happen. They could all then do something about it. That would then mean that 24 homes further down get flooded. So I didn't know whether you actually discourage people doing it or not.
And it may be that, because both Sue and I will recall that particular incident, and we did a lot of work on the causes of that with partners, including Gedling District Council, Gedling Borough Council as well. And it may be that it might be helpful to you if Sue and colleagues give you a kind of separate briefing on that particular
reservoir overflowing something or a bun. Yeah, I remember it.
It's a vegetation issue. Lots of that, fortunately, was garden, but really severe garden shed flooding, but didn't actually get into lots of people's homes. But that initial bit of work's been rectified by central program.
Listening to discuss it. So I do remember it well. I was caught in it. That's why. Councillor Cotty?
Councillor Darrington did signal before.
Oh, I didn't
know.
You Councillor Hart.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted to know really regarding a couple of villages that I'm aware of. Are there plans to expand the signage scheme or the flood wardens in Keyworth?
We'd be very happy to if we have the volunteers come forward. It's a volunteer-led scheme. We'd be really happy to work with additional folks if you have those contacts or someone you'd like us to get in touch with. So we're reliant on that.
So I'm just going to follow with one other is sense of where the plans to expand the signage scheme, what support have we offered to residents of this league as well as Cosstock?
Yeah, so we delivered a property flood resilience scheme in Cosstock, and we have an active community signage scheme there, and happy to more folks. That's a really easy to do because they're already trained, they've got a plan, they've got a policy, we've got resilience stuff. We run training programs for volunteers about every 4 or 5 months, so we could get them in pretty quickly.
Yeah, thank you. So I've got a couple of queries with regard to my patch. We've got 3 key hotspots. One of them last year was flooded quite heavily from the Dog Park area. The land drain there, the reservoir that is, I assume, was created to act as a floodplain. So that was unprecedented. I think there was over 30, 40 properties there totally flooded. The residents now, obviously it's creeping up to the winter period again. The residents now are living in trepidation. Has this been resolved, the issue with the sluice gate, which apparently didn't hold the water back? As this been resolved, there was quite a lot of rumour going around at the time, obviously prior to my tenure, so I'm starting now to ask questions a month ago of residents. A lot of the residents have not actually had any info, any updates, any reassurances as to whether this will happen again, because very traumatic, as we all know. So that was one of my queries. But and then the second query was, I've got a business in the Baker Street area, Ogle Street, Baker Street, which always floods. It always had water retention. But I remember on the night of Storm Babet, I was out there for probably 4 or 5 hours myself with a set of drain rods, along with another business owner, trying to unblock the gullies in and around our area. Some of those gullies were jam-packed, and on inspection 4 weeks ago, those same, and I photographed them 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. I photographed them, I did send the report in, and then I went back to running my business for the next 3 years until elected as county councillor. And I'm now seeing the same gullies still blocked to this day in that hotspot. And it's just a bit of a concern. I have flagged them, but it would be nice if we could just to give a little bit of reassurance and we could get those. It is a crime hotspot, and I think it should show a little bit, we should have a little bit more interest in those particular gullies because of the nature of the area, and we know it's next to Baker Street Brook, and everything that goes with it. The third hotspot in Hucknall, I think the Environment Agency's worked damn hard over the last few years to alleviate, whilst it does still flood, and that's just off Torquay Way, at the bottom of Torquay Way. So yeah, I wonder if it'd be possible to work with you and just reassure really of future.
I could go in chapter and verse about dog park and sluice gates and what we've done on this property for residents, but maybe if I put something in,
that'd be super.
We talk about the whole of the catchment with Ross Marshall in my team leads that area, then we could go through it in detail and we can sort that out.
Super, thank you.
Because that's and this, it may or may not be the case, Sue, but quite often with flood events and flood episodes, community perception and understanding of the root causes of the issue sometimes don't tally with the more professional understanding of that, and that might be something for Sue and the team to explore with you. As far as highways, gullies, drainage and clearance is concerned, we have, as I mentioned earlier in response to Councillor Clark's question, undertaken a clearance clearance programme for the majority of our gullies, but we have found in a number of cases that we're unable to unblock them by means of the usual more straightforward methods, and for some parts of the drainage network, we need to put together quite a significant programme of work to clear what could be, in some cases, a really kind of long-standing and substantial blockage. That may or may not be the case in the location you've mentioned. What I'll do is I'll follow up afterwards, so that via colleagues and your district manager, I think it's Carl in your neck of the woods, will be in touch to follow that up with you and update you on what we have done and whether that we have got more of a substantial issue there, and he'll be able to highlight for you what we're intending to do about it.
That local knowledge, Derek, I would encourage all councillors, as well, if they have specific knowledge of a specific area that's at risk, to report it to the via district manager and follow up as necessary.
Councillor Clooney first, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. I've got a few things as well. My first thing was about gullies, so I think you've kind of covered that a little bit, because thankfully I don't live in an area where we have a lot of flooding incidents, so thank goodness for that. But I think block gullies are an issue in my area, as it sounds like there are in other areas. So you say there's a programme. Can we have some knowledge of when things are going to be cleared, or if things haven't been cleared for a long time? I know you said about reporting things, but and I will do. Somebody asked me just the other day about the block gully, actually. So.
So just to pick up on that, I think in the current year we're on track to clear around about 80,000 gullies. There are around about 140,000 gullies in the county, so it's a significant programme of activity. And through your engagement as a local member, and this applies to all members with via, as Councillor Bingham has just mentioned, we're able to and offer a regular report for all members that includes detail on what gullies have been cleared in your particular patch and where as well. So we're able to provide you with that information. It's a very, very local level.
Yeah, I'd like that. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, so I'll carry on to my next thing. First of all, I wanted to say as well about the report. It really shone through how much volunteers have done to help in these flooding incidents. So I'd like to thank all the volunteers, you know, across the county. As I say, thankfully, it's not really in my area, so that's great for us, but I'm glad all these people take part and, you know, help out. On page 30, it mentions some third-party damage to a drainage system in Costock. This was Costock. Does this mean somebody else had damaged it, and do we know what happened? And
So you might be able to pick up on that one.
I'll be able to. Just give me 1 minute to find it.
Of course, it's in point 11 on page 30.
So it's the damage to the 7 house so far.
It says buyer have been working to resolve third-party damage to highway drainage systems in Costock.
It was something that had been damaged by somebody who was undertaking some street works, and it's been completely resolved now, fire reinstated and recharged to third-party agencies.
From time to time, the companies that deliver utilities, so gas, electricity, and the water companies as well, as they dig a hole, they hit upon a bit of drainage, a bit of pipework that they didn't know was there, and there's a consequence.
Yeah. I've got one more question, if that's okay. This is on page 41. This is about Severn Trent, actually. They've been made aware of some ongoing issues with the combined sewer network, and there's a problem there. So do we get an update of that being fixed?
Yeah, so what happens when there's a significant flood event, the surface water goes into Severn Trent. So,
yeah.
And then it gets overwhelmed.
Yeah.
We get an issue. So we work really well and closely with Severn Trent to look at what we can do to help that. And that's an ongoing piece of work that's ongoing currently. And if you need an update, we can certainly do that for you.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Chair. Page 34, item 24 is reference to the County Council continuing to develop its flood warding, road closure training programme, and a great job they do in my area works up east, the same as everywhere else. Some feedback I've been given from the recent floods last time we had was the use of a product called a flood sack. These flood sacks, like literally paperweight, stored in different containers around worktop. I'm sure they are in other areas. And when they were recently used, the most recent use of them, the flood wardens fed back that were like putting salmon in a river and they just swim off. Not very suitable. So I've done a bit of research myself into these flood sacks. They take 4 minutes to activate them. You soak them in water, and over a period of time they crystallise whatever goes off inside them, and they become 20 kilo in weight after 4 minutes. That's one sack. So I think there's a massive training requirement if we're going to continue to use this product, and I'd also like people to look into whether we feel that they're actually suitable or not, whether there's a different product on the market we could use. And in addition to that, with the flood warden training, as we continue to develop that, can we really look at specific training for using these things? So you can imagine a storm's coming down and you've got 4 minutes to inflate one bag. Where do you inflate them? If you've not got a tank of water to, and what's the method of work for actually doing that? It'll take if you need 8 sacks to protect one doorway, it's going to take you quite a lot of time to fill those up. And it does bear the question: are they fit for purpose?
Sue, tell us about
I
Aquasac.
can tell you about aquasacs. Aquasacs are like babies' nappies. Same sort of thing. So.
Don't use that as an alternative.
Nice scenario, that one.
There's a whole place agenda there. I don't want to get.
Fines now, that one.
As a biodegradable,
Now we're talking about sewage now.
you can recycle that. So you're absolutely right. They take time to activate. So when there's a significant flood event, there's normally a combination of communities that have got aquasacs who are aware that they might have a problem and use them as a precaution. So they will have activated them and they will have built their aquasacs wall. So with an aquasac, you probably need 5 or 6 to protect the door and to activate them. And you do need to soak them and you do need to activate. So you can put them outside and you can put a hose pipe on them, or you can, you can have a think about what will work in your situation. The advantages are they're easy to store, they're lightweight, and people can carry them around quite easily and they're very, very transportable. They're not as effective as sandbags if you need to sandbag something really quickly to stop something. So we use a combination of both. The flood signage, warden training, we do talk in there, and there's a section on how to activate an aquasac and the time that it takes and whether it's suitable. It's a bit like horses for courses. If you don't want to be activating an aquasac in your kitchen sink, carrying it all the way through your house and putting it on the outside of your door, completely impractical. But in some cases, people really like them because they can store them, they're lightweight, and they can be put in place. And on a lot of our schemes, we find that some more of our elderly residents can put them out, and then the flood signage wardens will come and activate them. So I agree, they're not for everybody, and if you do just put them down, early days when we first got them, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, people would just put them down, and we've learnt a lot because they do just float off. They need to be activated, they need to be put in place. Once they're in place, they're very, very effective. And they're easier to dislodge.
Yeah. So just a point on that though, once they're inflated, they weigh 20 kilos,
Yeah.
which is above the acceptable weight for people picking dead weights up. If you work in warehousing and stuff like that, you're only legally allowed to pick up 15 kilos. So these things aren't light and they're not very easy to transport around. So again, I'd refer back to can we do something with the training that we're receiving these people, and maybe with the manufacturer who maybe have a better method of work for doing something like that, as they're the ones who manufacturing and marketing the product, which obviously somebody's procured.
It sounds like that's a national standard then, because they've all got ISO approval, so that sounds like somebody's missed that because they're manufacturing something that's not able to be used in that way. You're very bad.
Councillor Glanville?
Just another question.
Oh, go on then, just that, while we're on that
Sorry,
question, while we're on that
I just
subject.
wanted to ask about that. So, once you've activated it, how long does it stay, like forever or forever?
Yeah, it can stay there for a long
So
time.
presumably, if you know
While
there's,
it's wet.
if there's been a flood warning, you know that it's coming, so presumably you will perhaps have some time to activate it. If you know, like in 2 or 3 hours, you've got time to activate it. Yeah.
It's horses for courses with those, I think. It just depends where they're suitable and effective.
Are there videos that demonstrate this?
Yeah,
There are online, yeah.
Okay.
There are many to look at.
Councillor Campbell?
Thank you, Chair. This one will be for you, Sue. So I live in Edwinstowe, and we've got an old bridge on the high street. It's got historical importance, but we've had regular flooding events over the last few years. Now, I understand, and it did surprise me because I didn't realise that we do riparian management of bridges. So this bridge is due to be desilted later on this year. In terms of flood mitigation, as we know, certain areas, certain bridges will flood. And obviously we know those bridges have got silt, as in we know this high street's got silt. What kind of management plan does our council have, highways via, for a desilting programme of those bridges to stop potential flooding events in future?
And there is a Is it a listed structure?
Couldn't tell you off the top of my head. Need to look it up.
Bridges are interesting, especially historic bridges, because there's all sorts of things that we can and can't do. If it's a structure that is on our inspection register, then we will pick it up through asset inspections. I've got a feeling it's a bit like the Commissioner's Bridge in Southall. I think it's a listed structure, and there's issues around throttle and water cost that I'll need to have a look at. I'll come back to you just so that I don't tell you something that's incorrect, because we really don't do so.
Okay, thank you. I know we desilted this particular one, which surprised me. One other question, and this tags onto something you mentioned earlier.
Just for clarification, sorry, who's desilting? You said we. You mean county councillors?
It's fire.
Right.
It was raised at a parish council meeting by the leader of the district and Nottinghamshire District Council. And I think, yeah.
Can you give me some time to go and have a look?
Yes,
I'll look into it. I don't want to tell you something that's not right.
Yeah, no worries. A lot of us work with farmers. I've had quite a few tours with farmers the last few months. Now, there's some farmland which will always flood, even if those rivers are desilted by the landowner. You mentioned £194 million worth of funding, which is excellent. How do you identify and work with the farmers to creating bunds to mitigate those areas? Because I can think of probably at least 5 or 6 farmers that would benefit from funding with bunds, or perhaps doing some other riparian work that doesn't include desilting.
So the 194 million was money we detracted into the authority for all sorts of things. So when we get a community that is impacted really badly by flooding, and we look at the mechanisms for how that community is flooded, it's not always farmland surface runoff, it might be something else, but often it is, and every little bit helps. We will talk to the farmer and to the landowner to see if they're interested in exploring natural flood management and more sustainable ways of farming. That sometimes is a conversation that takes a little while. And we have a number of folks that we work along with who are really good at talking farming language to farmers, so they understand what the benefits could be. Sometimes that means them changing their farming operation as to how their fields and that structure works. If you've got folks that you think would like to talk to us, we'd absolutely like to talk to them if they're in communities that are really vulnerable. I think we've put in nearly 400 or 500 structures on different farming communities across Nottinghamshire in the last 3 years. So it's definitely a growing part of our business. We're starting to understand it a lot more. I've got someone who works in my team, Dr. Joshua Wells. He is probably one of the best qualified people in NFM in the country, and he works for us. So absolutely happy to talk to you about where we can go and look at it next.
That's brilliant. So I have been working with, this is recently, I had a meeting with Natural England where I met a farmer, and there's water catchment groups in each county,
yeah,
and a number of landowners have tagged on to them. Do you guys work with them?
Absolutely, we do. And we work a lot with Natural England, and we work a lot with all sorts of people. We're doing a scheme that works on that's what £2.5 million up there, looking at working with them. So we're definitely love a place at that table and look to work with more people. But yeah, it's fantastic.
And we do, as I said at the start, we do very much encourage a multi-agency approach. I think Notts Wildlife Trust are implementing some of these schemes, aren't they, Sue?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have an answer for you, Sue, on the bridge. If it's the bridge on the High Street in Edwinstowe, it's a non-designated heritage asset, so it isn't listed.
Okay. I've got a question more general. You'll like this. As Councillor Clark MBE would fully understand, back in September he sent along with the place chairman at the time, a letter to the Secretary of State for Rural Affairs. Did we get a reply to that letter regarding, it's basically, was it asking for more powers really, yeah, for the local flood authority?
I'm not aware that we have had a response. I don't.
Got it here. Got his, what you'll like to hear.
Yeah,
So if I can pass that on, see if we can get a reply. Did you get a reply?
Not as I recall.
Okay.
He or she might.
Just for the benefit of other members, I don't know if they understand the context. As lead flood authority, we are the county council is often assumed that they will wave a magic wand and everything will get done, whereas it needs other agencies to do the work. And basically, the gist of the letter was we have the title lead flood authority, but we don't actually have the teeth to back that up and organise other authorities to coordinate and work and do. So it was trying to ask, can we have the power, the teeth, the authority to tell other people to get something done, basically?
Yeah. So you take that up, yeah?
We can certainly follow that up.
Yeah, we'll write again. Yeah, we'll write again, but and see if we can get a reply this time. Is there any more questions, Liz?
Can I ask a question about that? So just to ask the officers, do you think, I mean, there's obviously really in detailed stuff of what goes on with other agencies. Do you feel there are things that you would like more power to be able to do?
The short answer is absolutely yes. If we could strengthen our enforcement powers and certainly also perhaps strengthen our hand as far as Sue's told a very positive story about our funding, but some of the funding requirements around some of the major schemes that we need to protect some of our larger urban settlements like Worksop and some other locations that are subject to episodic flooding. It's not just about powers, it's also about a different environment for funding and a different set of responsibilities between organisations like ourselves and some of the other key partners like the Environment Agency and some of our utility partners as well. So absolutely, that's a conversation that I think local government as a sector would like to have with government. I think the other thing to bear in mind is with devolution and the establishment of combined authorities and the increasing flow of national monies through combined authorities for significant infrastructure and kind of place shaping investments, then I think there's also a place in that conversation for combined authorities. Because of course in a place like Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire, our water systems, our river systems are connected. What happens in Derbyshire on a Tuesday often finds its way into Nottinghamshire by the end of the week. And likewise, Sue mentioned the flooding issues that we had coming out of the River Soar in Leicestershire earlier this year. So there's a space for regional combined authorities to also become much more influential and active in the space of flood protection.
One more question. Flood mapping. Is that taken into consideration when with planning decisions and in housing and infrastructure? Obviously, yeah.
Yeah. So we have flood zone maps, which are produced by the EA for the whole of the county. So we are a statutory consultee on major applications, and we also look on ones that are sensitive. And we look at the flood mapping, and we also look at our local historic knowledge, because sometimes the maps are a bit behind what might have happened in the last 2 years. They're not updated on that regular basis. We use that to inform our planning.
The reason I say it's just there has been events, not necessarily in Nottingham, where we've had big developments on known flood sites.
We're not the deciding authority, however, so we make our comments known to the LPA, so to the districts, and the districts make a decision on that.
Yeah, in relation to that, a cynic might say, obviously I wouldn't say it, but a cynic might say that perhaps on appeal, permission might get given for developments in floodplains. But that's only a cynic that would say that.
Is any more questions? No? I'll move to ask Martin to make summary of the discussions and detailed issues that's arisen.
Thank you. Well, I think there's a really good discussion. I think the key message is there for like members, not just members in this committee. If you have got any kind of like very specific detailed inquiries, please contact Sue and her team who will be able to assist and have that kind of like that conversation with you. I'll also note that the Place Committee did do a big review about flooding preparation and storm Babet, etc. last year. So I'd encourage members to have a look at that, and we will be getting a progress report on the implementation of the recommendations at the March meeting. And then just the only additional thing that's got at the meeting, I think members are agreeing that you'd like the cabinet member and the chair of the committee to write to the Secretary of State again about the role of the powers that you have as a legal local flood authority.
So can I confirm with members all their points have been captured? And if so, I'd like to move it to vote on the recommendation. All in favour? Recommendations carried. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to item 5 of the agenda, the local nature recovery strategy. Just to advise the committee that the final draft of the LNRS is being considered by Cabinet this afternoon. So comments and considerations of this place scrutiny committee members reported direct to the Cabinet by Councillor Bingham as part of their discussions on the report. On that, I'd like to invite Councillor Bingham, Cabinet Member for Transport and Environment, to introduce the report, please.
Okay. As a new administration, we've inherited a position again where substantial work's been done on documents that are in line with regulatory requirements. These type of reports permeate into other areas such as planning, into areas such as the soon-to-be adopted local plan, and as I say, they were and are at an advanced stage and now ready for adoption. See, put my glasses on. So I'm pleased to bring the amendments to committee of the LNRS, Local Nature Recovery Strategy, for approval prior to Cabinet this afternoon. It's been the culmination of 2 years of hard work with partnerships across Nottinghamshire, and as the responsible authority, the County Council has led the preparation of the strategy on behalf of supporting authorities comprising the City Council, 7 District and Borough Councils, East Midlands or MCA, East Midlands Combined Council Authority now, and Natural England. It's a new statutory document under the Environment Act 21 that sets out actions to support nature. Every designated responsible authority in England has to produce an LNRS, and together they will contribute to a national nature recovery network. I'll pause just there for a moment because just to confirm that the new administration, we are very supportive of environmental protection and enhancement. I think certain media out there are trying to make that we're not, but we'll be bringing other things forward that just confirm how green and environmentally conscious we are. Excuse me. We still have some great places for nature in our county, internationally important ancient woodland and heathland at Sherwood Forest, nature reserves along the Trent, Erewash and Idle River valleys and traditional grasslands, as well as urban parks and heritage gardens within our towns and cities. We've also seen significant declines over many years. This strategy sets Nottinghamshire's ambitions for the recovery of nature. It identifies opportunities for enhancements to our priority habitats and actions for key species that need targeted support to help them survive and thrive. Officers have worked with a wide range of partners from different sectors who have provided invaluable expert input to ensure that the strategy is robust and evidence-based. A draft written strategy and local habitat map were prepared and approved and have been subject to extensive public consultation for 6 weeks from 6th of May this year to the 16th of June. The public consultation revealed broad support for the LNRS and the proposed priorities and measures, with a clear understanding of the strategy's aims and commitment to nature recovery. All of the responses to the consultation have now been analysed and amendments made to produce this final version. The committee is asked to approve the amendments to the LNRS, which will be, as I say, presented for adoption to Cabinet this afternoon, before it to be forwarded to the supporting authorities for their endorsement before it is formally published. Once the LNRS is published, the County Council will continue to work closely with partners to secure its delivery and, as a responsible authority, to carry out the required monitoring and reviews.
Councillor Bingham. I'd like to ask the officers present if they have anything further to add.
I think we've got a few slides to kind of bring the strategy to life.
Yeah,
for you.
I was just going to say, Chair, I think you can see various members of the team here because it sits within David's service. So we'll let the slides hopefully answer all the queries as we go through with a video as well, I'm told.
Can I just make the final point that the Place Select Committee is asked to know, one, the progress on the development of the final LNRS for Nottinghamshire and Nottingham in advance of being considered by Cabinet for approval, and secondly, the key milestones that need to be achieved prior to formal publication of the LNRS for Nottinghamshire and Nottingham.
Yeah, we've got something to say on that, Tom.
We have. So apologies, councillors. In the original agenda pack, there was a slight error with the recommendation. So you'll have an updated copy in front of you with the correct recommendations, correct versions that are also online. Thanks.
And so I think, Chair, so I think Heather's going to lead off on the slides, and obviously other colleagues are here to take queries as we go. So they're on the screen now.
He's operating them for me. So as Councillor Bingham has said, this is a culmination of a few years of work by quite a lot of people. We have put in there a short video that we've put together to introduce NRS to people. And as there are so many new members of the committee, we felt it would be helpful to show that to you now. So we're hoping the technology.
Ever heard about local nature recovery? The county of Nottinghamshire is home to a variety of natural habitats. The ancient woodlands and heathland of Sherwood Forest, and the wetlands along the River Trent, as well as many parks, nature reserves and green spaces in your neighbourhood. These green and blue spaces are home to plants, animals and insects, all of which are important for the future of the planet. We rely on nature for everything, for food, water, carbon storage and flood control, recreation and business opportunities. But nature is in crisis, with the UK being one of the most nature-depleted countries in the world due to changes in how we use the land, use of pesticides, pollution and climate change. Since 1970, our species have declined by 19%, and some, like the hazel dormouse and water vole, are particularly under threat and in danger of becoming extinct in our county. Nottinghamshire is one of 48 counties in England that has been asked by the government to make a plan for nature. We are leading this work on behalf of the city and district councils. This plan is called the Local Nature Recovery Strategy. It will set out a framework for priorities and actions for recovering nature across Nottingham City and Nottinghamshire. We can all help nature to recover in our gardens, our workplaces and the green spaces near to where we live. There are already lots of people who are carrying out projects to restore nature in our county. These include councils, farmers, environmental organisations, businesses and community groups. But we need a lot more action to be taken, and as soon as possible. Nature recovery projects will improve habitats and support species, but also have other benefits in terms of addressing the negative effects of climate change, such as increased flooding. They can also provide access to green spaces, which is really important for people's mental and physical health. The local nature recovery strategy will set out the most important actions for nature recovery, which can be taken by the county, city and district councils, by partner organisations and by Nottinghamshire residents. We all have a responsibility to protect the natural environment, and we need your help. Look on our webpage for updates and ask to be kept informed about online surveys and consultation events you can attend.
The way it's been, we've had to develop the LNRS has been set out in the regs that were published in 2023. There are two things we had to do. One was the statement of biodiversity priorities, and the other was to publish a local habitat map that showed areas that are already of importance for nature conservation and areas that could become of importance for nature conservation. As we've already said, this was the draft was approved in March, and we went out to public consultation in May. We did 6 weeks of consultation. We went to as many places as we could to try and get to as many people as we could and as many different segments of communities as we could. So we went to, I say we, this is a royal we, this was actually mostly Neve and Catherine, went to the Green Hustle in the city. We went to ploughing matches, the county show. We did online surveys that were promoted through the parish councils and others. We also had some targeted events specifically for land managers. So one of the things that government was keen that we did was to work very closely with farmers and landowners. So we've worked with organisations like the CLA and the MFU to put on events that farmers were invited to. We've actually had really good response to this. So next slide, please. Those responses actually are in line with what we're seeing from other responsible authorities. I am in touch with a lot of other councils, and so I'm aware of where they're at with their LNRSs, and we are pretty much in line with the number of responses that we've got. And one of the things we do have to do is to publish all of those comments and how we've responded to them. What the surveys have fed back is that there is very broad support across the county for the LNRS and for taking action for nature. We also received some specific comments about things in the LNRS that we have responded to. And these are the key changes that we've made to the original draft document in response to the consultation. We've added content about the impact on heritage and how the two interplay with each other. We've worked with the county's heritage specialists to do that. The reference to Sport England playing field policy came directly from Sport England, and we worked with them to make sure that that's referenced. There are some minor amendments to mapping that we've made changes in response to specific landowner requests, but also to requests from larger organisations. And one species added, the grizzled skipper, was added as a priority. Thank you, Derek, I knew you'd appreciate that. As a priority species. We're in response to some of the comments we got about the mapping. It is quite complicated. We did produce a user guide. Not everybody read it. But in response to the comments that have come back, we're going to produce user guides for looking at the local habitat map and also for specific sectors so that we make it relevant to what they need rather than them having to plough through the whole document. As Councillor Bingham said, this is going to Cabinet this afternoon to approve the amendments. The next stage is that we then need to send it to our supporting authorities. Those are EMCA, the District and Borough Councils, City Council and Natural England. So those are our supporting authorities. Provided they don't object, we will then notify the Secretary of State of our intention to publish. We have to give, it says in the guidance, reasonable notice. And that seems to be on average about 2 weeks from most authorities, with the intention that the LNRS would then be a published document in November 2025. Built into the legislation, there is a review period. It's a bit non-specific at the moment. It's 3 to 10 years. We are anticipating DEFRA may well suggest 5 years, so that feels about right, but we don't know. But as the responsible authority, we would be responsible for monitoring and reporting back. What we aren't responsible for necessarily is then delivery. So we are just one part of a much broader spectrum of stakeholders and partners who will be looking to this document to drive forward projects and to secure funding. So although we do that, we do work with partners on a regular basis to bring forward projects, and we do projects on our own sites, our own green spaces sites. We don't necessarily have to do all of this. In fact, we don't have to do all of this. It is just there to guide work going forward. There's a lot of information on the website. Catherine and Neve have done a fantastic job in putting all that together, so please do go and have a look. But in terms of presentation, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. More input from officers?
Hopefully, Chair, it comes across that there's a huge amount of work on in over a long period of time. The team have done some extensive engagement out there with partners, and I think the real positive thing I'd add to that is obviously there's other areas preparing their own LNRS documents, and the team have been ahead of the game. So we've always been in front of those other comparator areas, and that's really encouraging. Obviously, they've looked to us for support and advice as well. So there's a positive collection of engagement going on there with peers, but also with key partners in the county.
Okay, thank you. So on that note, I'd like to move the recommendations, the amended recommendations on this report, and seek a second. We'll second that for you, Chair. And on that note, I'll open the floor up to debate.
Yes, can I just ask a couple of questions which are sort of actually linked? So will the LNRS be used to prevent development on green spaces, including solar farms, as Councillor Bingham and I are very aware? And sort of as part of that, would it be then become a material consideration in planning decisions moving forward?
I think it will be part of the planning process and guidance, particularly statutory consultees. With the NSIPs, National Strategic Infrastructure Projects, the larger solar farms, how much notice the Secretary of State will take of that, I don't know. But with that, I'll hand over to officers to comment.
I'll say that. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Bingham. Yeah, the idea is that this will be embedded into the planning system. It's already referenced in the planning practice guidance. So as local authorities prepare their new local plans, they will have to have regard to this, and they'll have to put policies associated with this to direct decision making. That's at a policy level. Because the idea is you picked up that this is a partner thing, so there's a whole range of different systems and partners that will be helping to deliver this, and the planning system will help to enable that. In parallel with that is also biodiversity net gain. which is important. So you've got the LNRS and you've got biodiversity again, so those two work together. So through the planning system, it's one area where this will help deliver the LNRS.
Question? Thank you. Local nature recovery strategy is excellent. It's a wonderful document. So I'm very pleased that the council's done that. Touching on comment that Councillor Barlow made against, I suppose, mitigating against future solar, you could also use local nature recovery to mitigate against possible flooding events as well in the future. And this is where there's a link between flooding and ecosystem services, natural capital management. So potentially, I'm sure you already do this as well, you could identify areas of land further upstream from where it normally gets flooded, where you could create new natural habitats. So for example, wade scrapes, seasonal ponds, areas that will hold volumes of water, additional channels and rivers, areas that will disperse water as well. You can link that in with BNG. BNG effectively could pay for some of that as well. This is something that you would be looking to, you're possibly already doing it, to embed in policy and planning going forward to alleviate flooding, but also enhance natural habitats.
Yeah, I think creation of wetlands is key to the planning process going forward. I've got a minerals background, so that's the process that we were already implementing in the 1990s. So I'll let the officers take over again.
I think Heather and Dave might come in.
Yeah, absolutely. You give a very fine example where, working together you can help a big issue like flooding. And ultimately the local nature recovery strategy is about identifying areas where they need recovery. So where there is in decline, so it's concentrating on resources here, but there's absolutely an opportunity here to have much more joined up thinking about how this can actually help other wider issues, to help support creating scrapes, adding additional things to help flooding via nature is a really positive way of helping to improve nature. So absolutely. And it's about having that joined up thinking. So this is just one component where we can absolutely direct that. And it's always used as an example. If you try to prevent flooding upstream, you hold it back upstream. It's good to prevent flooding downstream. And so yes, it's a very good example.
There's some big synergies as well across that EMCA region. So Derek mentioned earlier, I think flooding in Derbyshire affecting Nottinghamshire days later, and obviously what they're doing with the people restoration in Derbyshire start to have an impact on some of those. So we're working closely, obviously, as you'd imagine, with the Derby and Derbyshire LNRS as well to make sure we have a positive impact on Nottinghamshire through that. And although, as Dave mentions, this in isolation is a document around nature recovery, all you've spelled out around new sites, particularly through BNG, and what we can impose on developers coming to the county, so we get green spaces in the county on the back of new development in the county. That's a priority for the planning team, and that can, of course, then have a knock-on impact on flood prevention opportunities wherever they arise. So lots of work to do in setting out the action plan and delivering on that, but we need partners to come together to make that a reality.
Can I just add something? We do have a specific measure about natural flood management in our written statement, and we did work closely with the Environment Agency and our flood risk team as well, and other partners, and we've got an area identified around works on the local habitat map for natural flood management measures. So we have taken account of that in the preparation.
Yeah, I think Sue said as well before she left that the Notts Wildlife Trust working with farmers to establish these. I think once upon a time I would have called them flow balancing lagoons, but moved on since then.
And the catchment partnerships as well, the Trent and Orange catchment partnership, and then the River Idle and Sherwood catchment management partnerships. We're going to work closely with them moving forward to delivery.
Thank you. Councillor Clark, did you have a question?
Only just a comment, really, Chairman. Just echoing Wayne Bexton's words, where you talked about a huge amount of work over a long period of time. So, well, obviously you'd be astounded if I was going to start criticising it now, which I'm not, because it is an incredibly important document and strategy, and I'm obviously absolutely important to protect the natural environment. And I think, picking up Councillor Bingham's comments, I think Conservatives and Reform are at one in terms of wanting to ensure that we do fully protect the natural environment. And as just picking, Catherine sort of really answered it in a way, is just the natural flood management. This is where different sections of the council need to be working together, because Sue's already demonstrated the natural flood management, and then in terms of the planning, and I remember over the last couple of years, I've trudged farmland and the uplands, looking at dams and bunds and leaky dams, etc., where steps are being taken to prevent the flooding. But obviously, unfortunately, rainfall has a habit of not being totally respectful of where you've already done work. Sometimes it floods other areas as well. But I think this is an area where we all seem to be, in agreement with each other.
Yeah, no, and Chair, if I may, no, thanks, Scott. I think you're absolutely right. I think when you were speaking, I think what jumps into my mind is we are a really significant player in the delivery. So we've produced the strategy. We've got over 80 green spaces sites that have been accessed much more. So through COVID and following COVID, the use of those sites has increased significantly. So there's clearly a value there from the public, and that's what the engagement told us as well. Outside of those 80 green space designated sites, we've got over 1,000 parcels of land as well that we own in Nottinghamshire. Some of those very small, but some of those larger that sit in the in property services as well. So there's significant assets we operate and control. So getting on top of that from anything we can possibly do is really critical. And one thing we're really keen on using the strategy for is securing grant monies. So we've obviously been planting lots of trees, using land that couldn't be used for other things to do tree planting. The team have done a huge amount of that. And again, we're looking at grants through EMCA and other partners to deliver on the LNRS as well. So I think this puts us in a really good place to make sure we do see activity beyond just a strategy, and we'll encourage partners obviously through that process as well.
Thank you. What will the success of the local nature strategy look like in your opinion?
I think there are metrics involved.
Absolutely. I think the next step is looking at the delivery of it. So we'll be working hard on preparing a delivery plan, what we're going to be delivering with our partners over a period of time. So over the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years. And we'll be measuring that. We obviously won't be able to do everything all at once. So we're going to carefully map out where our priorities are and how we're going to deliver that. So we're going to concentrate on that as soon as it's been approved.
I think one of the aspects for me, Chair, is, as Dave says, there's that action plan to come on the back of this. We've got a real good benchmark now where the county's currently at from a nature perspective. So first thing is, let's protect that through the planning system, through the changes we'll see in local government. Let's ensure we've got that front and centre. So it's really timely we're adopting this document now across Nottingham as the city and Nottinghamshire. So again, across all of our geography. So I think everybody's going to be aligned on protection. The enhancement then comes as a next stage. And through this document, you've got some really good maps, and obviously the interactive maps and plans. We want to enhance those over time as well. And you'll have seen with the National Forest, who are promoting their benchmark and what is now imagery that they have on their website and that they push out there. That's really quite a stark change because of a proactive approach they took. I'd love to see in 5 years when we review it a completely different map of Nottinghamshire, which shows all of that nature recovery that's been carried out by the county council, but also our partners as well.
It's worth saying with biodiversity net gain supplementary planning document there, got that out. that although there's a requirement for a 10% enhancement, there is an aspiration for 20 being brought forward. So.
And the BNG and the synergy with the BNG, as Councillor Gamble's mentioned as well, and Councillor Bingham is significant. So as we start to put those requests into developers, the key thing for us is making sure that investment comes back into Nottinghamshire. Using our own sites for credits is something we've already started to do, and there's supplementary planning guidance being adopted as well by the team, which will make reference to the LNRS. So we get biodiversity net gain as a new lever, if you like, a legislative lever that we can pull to make sure we can start to deliver on some of these aspirations.
Is there any anticipated challenges in the delivery of this strategy?
Well, I'll let Heather and Catherine comment. I think the one that I saw, and Heather's mentioned it, is with those big landowners. And so we went at length through the engagement process through the Countryside Landowners Association, the CLA and the NFU, to speak to those big landowners, because there was a perception that this may be a negative for farming and other activities, which is absolutely not the case. And since that engagement's been ramped up, we've had a really good response and consultation responses from them. So that was one that we perceived. I think we've headed that off, still work to do and ongoing engagement. I don't know if there's any others as well.
I think the biggest challenge for all of this is competing requirements for land. So there are lots of different uses for land, and making sure that nature has its place at the table is going to be critical for the success of this. And the second one is the funding, so making sure that the funding mechanisms actually line up with what we want. Some of that will be national funding through environmental land management schemes, and some of it will be regional, I would suggest, through organisations like EMCA.
And coming through the planning system as well, as Section 106 type.
Absolutely, yeah. We've seen EMCA established. So EMCA have been watching the two, Derby and Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire develop those LNRS documents. They've established a biodiversity task force. I think it's really important now as we go through adoption that we obviously are engaging with EMCA even more about the art of the possible for funding, and some of the topics we've covered I think will be really pertinent to what their priorities will be as well.
I think in the report as well, I think one of the things was said was it was quite difficult to follow. I understand you was going to do some user guides for different, like farmers, volunteers. Have you done them? Have you got them done?
They will be done when we publish. So when we publish in November, and we'll have the final version will be on the website. Those guides will then be available then to help guide people through. So we wanted to do it, yes, for specific sectors. So, if you're a planner, if you're a farmer, if you're a landowner, if you're a local resident, what can you do to support nature? So yes, those will all be available when we have the final version.
Councillor Darrington?
So in the north/west of Hucknall, we have a site at the moment which is opposite Hogue House, and this site currently has got a couple of developers that's had financial interest in the land, and I think there's 3 developers that's got assets tied up. It's got financial interest there. At present, Ashfield District Council have taken this section of land out of their local plan. Could we have the conversation at a later date as to how we can secure this and maybe bring this parcel of land into the system and protect it for future generations, because it's sacrilege to we haven't got any sort of boundary between the development that's happening in Gedling at the back of Oak House and the rest of Hucknall. So is it something that we could potentially look at pulling into the scheme itself?
Yeah, an interesting situation. I think that all that will be driven by the landowner. So if the landowner decides he doesn't want to develop it for housing, put an application for housing, that's his decision, and that land may end up being allocated again. You say it's been deallocated for housing. I think as a county council, in terms of the LNOS, in terms of green spaces, I think there's very little that we can do, because it really is up to the landowner to decide how he wants to manage his land going forward. I'm not entirely sure whether that parcel land, and I vaguely know where you are, whether that is identified as an area for nature recovery. So I'm just going to look to my colleagues to see. I think, Nick, you responded to a similar question, didn't you?
Yes, this is Wyburn Farm.
Yes,
Yeah,
Wyburn
that's right.
and Miss Farm, yes.
So I don't think that site has been flagged up in the local nature recovery strategy. That's not to say that, you know, when a review of the strategy is carried out in future years, it couldn't be looked at. But yeah, I think we need to think quite carefully about, and I think there's proposals possibly or ideas for a country park perhaps in that location. I think, as David says, you know, we need to you know, establish a relationship with the landowner there to see what was possible, and I think certainly we can, you know, possibly begin to have a conversation.
I think probably, and I think that's helpful context, but probably a follow-up. So obviously we're a significant, have been a significant landowner and are a significant landowner in that vicinity as well. So if we have a separate session, we can have a look at the plans and just explain where certain things are, obviously with housing adjacent to Oak House on the Gedling side, but also have a chat about what might be coming in the other direction. I think the other thing to note is, as we go into the LGR process, there will be a little bit of a reset as far as local plans, national planning policy framework reforms, the role of MCA and those new unitary authorities. So there's a chance in some respects to start to revisit certain allocations from a local plan perspective as it currently stands, albeit what Dave says is right, you know, with separate landowners, there's limitations into how far we can go. But if we have a separate session, we can just look at that wider area as well.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Gamble.
All right, thank you, Chair. I'm glad Councillor Darrington has raised this. I made an initial inquiry, didn't I, Nick, on what the Wyburn development. I do feel that when Nottinghamshire County Council purchased the land originally for Oak House, at that time, I don't know if the council did that, but we should have had an exploratory look at the land opposite, because Richard's talking about what's known as the Misk Hills. It's an area that's it's got historical importance. It's got lots of wildlife there. Lots of local people use that site and have done for generations. What we could have done is we could have purchased that land at the same time and created a green wedge, because you're quite right. There's going to be a lot of development over there, and the green wedge would have protected that area, but would also have allowed residents who are moving in, residents currently in Linby and Hucknall, to have an area that's safeguarded to explore. Just like, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously that's a historic scenario and purchase, but I certainly think with the LNRS now in place, and with some of that as a key driver, as Councillor David described, for our planning role and responsibility going forward, and it helps, doesn't it, look at things in a holistic way, and certainly LGR and that and planning functions coming together as well will no doubt give us an opportunity for that. So yeah, I think that's helpful. I think the LNRS puts us in a better space for them. Thank you.
Just a sort of for information, really. What role can residents play in supporting natural recovery in their local environment? Just, you know what I mean?
I think this is one for Nick, actually, with the green spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, as Wayne has already alluded to, we manage 80 green spaces sites on behalf of the County Council. We have volunteer groups associated with a number of those groups. So there are lots of opportunities for people to get involved in practical hands-on management.
Is publicised anyway?
It is to a degree, but I certainly think we can do a better job in advertising those opportunities. And one of the things we're going to be doing over the coming months is refreshing our green spaces strategy and looking at how we engage with local communities and provide volunteering opportunities will be a big theme within that strategy. I mean, more generally, you know, how people manage their gardens. I think, you know, there are more gardens in this country than there are nature reserves in terms of, you know, the area that they cover. So, you know, encouraging people to manage their gardens in a nature-friendly way, signposting them to information, you know, not concreting over their gardens and so on. I think, you know, so there are lots of opportunity and, you know, standing up for their local area and, you know, advocating for the protection of their local green spaces and that sort of thing, you know, and doing that through, you know, through you as their elected representatives. There are lots of ways that we can get involved.
I think it should be advertised more somehow. You know, I mean, I think I saw somewhere earlier this year, don't cut your lawns, leave your dandelions, whatever, for your bees, just stuff like that, you know.
And as Catherine, I think Catherine's going to say, and we can absolutely, one of those user guide elements will be getting involved and thought for residents of the county. I think we can share, we've got lots of proactive volunteers in and around green spaces, and it links back, doesn't it, neatly to the previous item where Sue talked about the green gym and kind of some of those opportunities. So I think there's a chance just to be really consistent with that user guide process and put out where those opportunities do exist and how we're very keen for people to get involved on our sites, but also, as Nick says, in their own gardens and contribute to the wider strategy in their own way. So we can take that away and make sure we send something to all members so they've got something in their back pocket for sharing with residents as well.
No questions?
Yeah, please, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Seaman.
Great work what you're doing. It's, I mean, everybody wants to protect the environment. Just something on your slide, and I like read through this. Sports playing fields. Now, to the layman, it's a field of grass. What recommendations are you proposing?
So this is in relation to, so we have a measure about urban green space and improving the qualities of accessible urban green space. Now, the mapping that we have used to do that includes sports pitches. Now, obviously, we're not proposing to turn football pitches into wildflower meadows or rugby pitches into woodlands or whatever, but you know, around the margins of sports pitches, and you know, you will see that often they're quite intensively managed. They're mown all the way up to the margins. You know, very simple and easy things like leaving an unmown strip around those sports pitches, putting in some, you know, a few trees around the margins, that sort of thing. So I think there was a slight concern from Sport England that yes, we were suggesting we were going to turn every football pitch into a wildflower. Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
And I think what I really want to know is what's a grizzled skipper?
Eric,
I mean, you know, I'm a fan of the name as much as anything.
It's a butterfly. It's not the most beautiful butterfly, although I think it's in its own way, it's quite an attractive little thing. But in Nottinghamshire, we're right at the northern boundary of the species range in Britain. So we have had a very successful project running for the last 10 or 15 years through Notts Biodiversity Action Group to manage the sites that this butterfly uses. We've been working with lots of private landowners. So it's a bit of a flagship species for a sort of conservation success in Nottinghamshire.
I shall Google it.
If you want to come out and see one, we can take you out to a site next week.
How rare are they?
They're very localised. They only occur at specific locations, and obviously their numbers fluctuate year on year depending on sort of weather conditions. So they are quite scarce.
The older they get, the more grizzled.
Thank you.
There's a commercial opportunity to do a tour now. There's a commercial opportunity.
Well, no, I think I should make an effort to see one of these now.
Do we have any more?
I'll just make one. So shall I bother? Heather mentioned land, so I'm putting a challenge to Councillor Bingham. The challenge is how can you manufacture more land for us to use?
Manufacture more land, that's a good one. Maybe we could put, you know, multi-storey land parks or something.
Football grounds. Yeah.
So I think it's not. There are lots of so land doesn't just have to be used for one thing or another. There are opportunities to layer different uses. So we talked about, you know, flood management. So, you know, rather than creating a concrete detention basin, it can be a wetland, like Councillor Gambler suggested. So it's looking for those multifunctional benefits and building nature into, you know, even housing developments, you know, through the green spaces that they provide. There are opportunities to create nature and help deliver, you know, the opportunities that we've identified in the LNRS.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
And
sustainable urban drain.
And there's a genuine debate there with our adjacent authorities as well, because when we're looking to encourage economic regeneration in the counties, that's another big aspect of the work in my area. And of course, one of the things is when developers come, we want to encourage them. So we're needing to ensure around us there's consistency. So Developer X doesn't say, okay, we're off somewhere else where the kind of there isn't as arduous requirements on us to put green space in or deliver things in a sustainable way or X, Y, and Z. So working with those partners as part of that, making sure wherever they go, they're getting a consistent message is really quite powerful. And we're doing that through our supply chains, through ARC and Via as well. So that message is well out there, and hopefully we see the fruits of that in coming years.
So does Derbyshire have a local pizza? Do you talk to your partner?
Yeah. And we will be giving a joint presentation to the combined authority in the next week or two.
Yeah. Any more questions? No. So I'd like to ask Martin to read out a summary of the discussion and to detail the issues that have arisen, please.
Just note on the work programme that's already been agreed, we have got in there like implementation of the LNRS. So at a future point, we'll get a future report of how this is actually being put into place, which will be like really, really interesting. And then just what's come from the meeting, I think if we can, members would like to have information on the opportunities for residents to get involved with like recovery. So if we could get that circulated to members, and that also I think members were in agreement that that the role of the public in supporting nature recovery really needs to be promoted and at the forefront of the enactment of the plan when it actually gets put into place.
Okay, so can I confirm with members that all their points have been captured? And if so, I'd like to move it to the vote to accept these recommendations. Carried. Thank you very much. Okay.
Can I thank everybody for for their input historically? That's everybody, from members to especially the officers who put so much hard work into it. Obviously, we'll take away what we've debated and discussed this morning and feed that back to Cabinet as well this afternoon. So
I'd like to reiterate that as well.
Thank you.
It really is a good report and it's a great move forward, definitely. That being said, I'd like to move on to item agenda number 6, the work programme, and Martin's been kindly volunteered to introduce the report.
Yeah, so this is the new work programme for the committee that approved it overview committee last week. Thank you to all members who made suggestions.
Thank you.
And took part in the listing of the work programme. It is quite a busy work programme, but there's a lot of stuff that members want to look at, and as you'll see, the work programme way. So some things will be committee reports, and some things will be done as task and finish reviews, like further information about those coming out in due course. And then just one final thing to note, I did send the email around about it yesterday, but we've arranged the trip to the MRF, the Materials Recovery Facility in Mansfield for members. That will be in October. I've sent out the date with the times, and further information will come nearer the time because there's various bits and bobs that you need to fill out before you do that. But I would encourage all members to come to that because it's a really good tour. It's really interesting. I think you really get to know really about recycling and the issues around it in advance of us considering waste and recycling at the December meeting.
Yeah. When is it?
We have, yeah. It's just a note.
Note that then, if we noted, and
close the meeting.
And I'll close the meeting. Thank you all for your attendance. Officers and members. When's the next meeting?
This December.
Yeah.